Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sachs, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sachs.
Well, good morning and welcome to another edition of Someone You Should Know. This is going to be a special morning, and before we kick off the show and I introduce my guest, I want everybody to know this is going to be a very, very, very family-friendly show. So if the kids are nearby, you might want to have them get close to the monitor and follow along, because my very special guests this morning are Santa and Mrs. Claus. So welcome. Ho, ho, ho.
Good morning, Mr. Sachs. How are you today?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll call you Santa. You can call me Stuart.
Okay, great.
It's good to see you. It seems like it's been a year since we've talked.
I think you're right.
I believe that's correct, yes.
I had a little sleigh problem last year. So
Yes, and boy, what a change there's been in this past year. And it's probably made a lot of changes in your ability to do your regular job.
Well,
So, this is going to be very, very educational for our listeners too, because they all have to make a few adjustments this year for Santa's arrival. Number one, the first thing that came to mind was, because of the epidemic that we've been going through, a lot of children have been homeschooled this year. Yeah, they have all been home. Well, if they were all home, they were being watched, which means they were probably being good because they weren't at school getting into trouble. So what does that mean? The more good kids there are, the more pressure there is on Santa to come up with more toys. So
right.
has it been a busy season for you this year?
it's been real busy, and we've also had the same challenges that mommies and daddies are having with work and communicating with others. And we'll just throw in right now, the elves has been a great help this year. The elves on the shelf have been giving us all the information we need. And so when they're home, the elves have been doing their job too. They've been watching, and the Santa can is catching on.
That's true, very true.
That they put on the Christmas tree, and that's working very well. So we're real happy that we've got the responses that we've had this year. What we miss is the kids coming in to talk to Santa.
Well, yes, and I have noticed, because I've noticed that you've been popping up at some of the area, public places, but unfortunately, they've put you behind a screen in many cases, so the kids unfortunately can't get up on your lap. That's gotta hurt.
It does hurt, and but we've got to think of safety first, and social distancing and all that. It goes for Santa Claus as well as it goes for everybody else.
And I know so many of the places have been trying to do that with they had the plexiglass, and there was even one place that they had the Santa helper and the children, and they photographed them, and then they kind of chopped them together so it looked like they were actually sitting on Santa's lap. But you're right, Stuart. The nice list is much, much longer this year than it has ever been in recent years.
Yeah, see, you got calls coming in from the North Pole right now.
Every day there's something new. Every hour. Now we're getting close now. Here it is already, December 23rd.
I know, just 2 days away, and you got to get the reindeer all together. You got to start planning your circuit, where you're going to go. Do you often have to follow the weather forecasters to see where to go first and alter your route?
Well, there's not that much that we're kind of an all-weather type situation, as you very well know. And we talked about where we were warehousing these days in various places across the country last year when we talked to you. But once again, I rely a lot on the elves this year. Every year it seems like they step up, and the mommies and daddies too. Where we can't, the moms and dads pick up for us. So it's a kind of a community thing these days. And so Santa's very happy to say that the moms and dads are doing their parts as well as all the elves. So.
And as Kris mentioned last year, we kind of took a page out of Amazon's book, and we do have some distribution centers throughout the world, and that makes it a little bit easier. And as you know, NORAD always does a great follow Santa, so that we always know what's going on weather-wise.
Yeah, and if there's a good jet stream, that's helpful to you because it helps you get from country to country a lot faster.
Sometimes that's something you have to butt too. So
That's true.
I know the elves have been extremely, especially the elves on the shelf, because in addition to just making sure that all those boys and girls have behaved and have been good this year, they also have been watching to make sure that they're using their Lysol pads on their desks and using their hand sanitizers and washing their hands. And I understand that just recently, my grandson, they always say you're supposed to wash your hands and sing happy birthday twice. Yeah. But I understand that they're allowing the kids while they're washing their hands to sing, "We wish you a Merry Christmas."
Oh, that's nice. I'd like to hear that.
And you sing that twice while you're washing your hands, and that gives you enough time. Mm-hmm. So that's a good tip to the kids. You could wait till after the holiday to sing happy birthday again.
And now they talk about the W's: wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your distance from other people. The social distancing is important. That's right. Now, I can't wait till we can start hugging the kids again. And last year, some of them were trying to teach Santa how to do the floss, but we haven't had that opportunity this year.
So I hadn't had any new dance steps this year. So.
And you practiced and practiced and practiced, and then the pandemic hit, and now you got a social distance.
Well, yeah, had to hone our computer skills this year.
Right.
That's when the elves really come in handy, because some of them are younger and much more adept. Many times, if Mrs. Claus is looking for a recipe, it's pilot error, so I need to have one of them help me out.
Now, knowing that you have distribution centers all over the world and you've got just literally thousands and thousands of elves, have you had an effective social distance program between the elves and those that are putting together all the toys for Christmas?
I have seen on my Facebook page picture after picture of elves wearing the mask. Some of them were in little plastic boxes, maintaining social distance for our isolation
with each other. Yes.
Yeah, but they could still see through the box. So it has been. They have been more than cooperative on this. More than cooperative.
And I think it's really good that we branched out last year and we're able to get some of these distribution centers set up. And then it was easier to send different people to different places because everybody has to self-quarantine when you've been someplace, whether you have been sick or not, one never knows. So safety first.
That's right. And after you unload, your load of packages in one place, you got to swing by the nearest distribution center to reload and get going, get on the highway. So it's almost like a Indy 500 pit stop.
Yeah,
in there.
That's kind of true. Yeah,
kind of true.
I never.
And this year, we're not only are we cautious of the weather, but we're also trying to make a airway, if you will, in the sky, so that the people delivering the vaccine have a clear shot everywhere. So we're not going to be delayed by waiting on Santa Claus to get through. So we're kind of taking a back seat on that. So we might be a little bit slow this year, but we're watching very closely.
And I'm curious that we live in a time of Ring. Everybody's got the Ring doorbells and Ring security systems. That means that you and your elves have got to be pretty quick at getting in and out of that house before that Ring system goes off and wakes up the kids.
Well, I tell you, once again, there's challenge, but there's a lot of Christmas magic going around too. So you got to believe. So Christmas magic takes over. It'll take us through.
We just heard from some moms just the other day who wanted to make sure that they had the right recipe for reindeer dust, because they take oatmeal and glitter and they sprinkle it out so the reindeer have something to chew on while Santa's delivering his packages. So that's a big thing this year again. And it's really, don't forget cookies for Santa. I mean, he looks like he enjoys them, and yes, he does. But
do you have favorite cookies, Santa?
Absolutely not, because I'm happy when I get a cookie, but I'm more happy that the family pitched in and gave me one and thought about me.
And we were getting also letters and seeing on the internet, because I've started to master that a little bit. We've been seeing families cookie baking together and decorating gingerbread houses. And it reminds me of when we always did all that with the youngers and the elves and how much fun it was. But there was one little boy who did his gingerbread house and it collapsed. It didn't work out as well as he had hoped. So he put a toy dinosaur in it, and he said, "That's what happens when the dinosaur gets at the gingerbread house."
Very, very resourceful way to cover yourself, right? Now, also, I guess we should remind those children that are watching right now and the parents that are watching, while they're busy studying or something, that also make sure that you leave a little bit of hand sanitizer over by that plate of cookies and milk, so that if Santa comes in, has a nice drink and some cookies, that he's got some sanitizer when he leaves the house to go to his next visit.
Well,
that's very good. But we do have the sleigh equipped, and all of the elves have a sanitizer on their belt buckle. But that's a very good thought, and it's very kind of you to mention that, Stuart.
They do. That's a good thing. Have you noticed that are there any certain things that the children seem to be asking for this year more than last year?
well,
One of the things I've noticed, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chris, I'll let you talk. Of course, Xbox is very popular, but more and more children, and I don't know if it's because they're spending more time with their families, board games and puzzles have been at the top of the list.
Very good. Yeah, I know puzzles. All of a sudden, there are jigsaw puzzle places that are sometimes out of stock. That
Yes.
they're busy trying to recoup. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I think people can take photos of their family and you can send them to places where they can make it into a jigsaw puzzle. So you can
Yes.
have your own family jigsaw puzzle.
Yes, I believe I've seen that as well, and that would be fun too.
Yeah. Now I noticed, Mrs. Claus, that you call him Kris, and I know that there are many names around the world. The Kris Kringle actually was probably one of the earliest. Kris Kringle, and then Santa Claus kind of became the American version. But Saint Nicholas, he's also known as Saint Nicholas. In France, I think it's Père Noël, and in Spain, it's Papa Noel. But we revealed last year, right here on this show, just to show you how educational we are. I said we've always known you as Mrs. Claus, but we never knew, your first name.
Well,
And
I told you last year.
and you revealed last year that your first name is
Lucia.
Lucia. And I got to doing a little bit more reporting and digging on that, and I realized that aren't you originally from Italy?
Yes, I am.
Yes. And I think you tell me if I got my story right. See, in Italy, Santa Claus is known as a Babbo Natale.
Buona Natale, true.
Babbo Natale. Now that's a name, Babbo Natale. And I'm sure that when Lucia walked over to Santa and said, Babbo Natale, Santa, you must have melted in your boots.
Well, we do have a story about how we met.
Let's tell that story, because everybody wants to hear that one.
Well, it's kind of
It's a long time ago.
long time ago, but we met at the ice skating rink, and we I think I fell and she helped me up. But at any
He's
rate,
just being kind. It was the other way around.
anyway, after we had had a few rounds on the ice, there was a shop right there that had hot cocoa. So I invited her over and we just sat there on the bench and had a nice discussion and found out that she loves marshmallows in her hot cocoa. And
a peppermint candy cane. You just twirl it around there.
Which, how could you not like that, right?
That's right.
And after we'd finished our cocoa, we decided that we would like to talk some more. And right next door, there was a little shop run by an elderly elf, and he had toys in there that he had made, him and some of his elfin friends. So we got to talking, and one thing led to another. And then after she became Mrs. Claus, we worked together and employed those elves. And that's how we originally started.
That's a fascinating story. So I mean, basically, you just kind of developed your own gift business, your own gift giving business.
And it all started with those beautiful wooden toys that this gentleman and some of the other elves made. There were little wooden cars and a miniature train and so many things, and they were carved so beautifully and delicately. Now, obviously, as time grew and the population of the world grew, and more people believed in Santa Claus or Buon Natale or Père Noël, there had to be more toys and more elves. And so it's really we're not quite as hands-on as we were originally, and we're not quite as regimented as Amazon, but we're doing pretty well, I think.
Well, I think so. Plus that I'm sure that those original elves that developed those toys and all, they started getting other elves together to say, hey, would you like to come on board and help us? And those elves came on and said, hey, you know what you're doing in wood? I think we can help you do that in metal and in plastic and make more toys for more kids. And then somebody else says, well, I know how to stuff things, so I can make stuffed animals. And boy, you just turned it into a business that, I mean, it almost rivals Amazon.
I think they could learn a few things from us.
Yeah.
And we learned some things from them as well.
From them too, as well. So.
And what you and Amazon share in common is that you have free delivery.
Exactly.
And you don't have to pay for Prime with us.
Yes, but the other fact that's very, very important is that I don't believe that there's anybody that's ever returned anything to Santa.
That's very true. I can't think
have
of
they?
Yeah, they usually find a way to.
They may have re-gifted something, but if they got two of the same thing, maybe they shared it with somebody else that needed something like that.
I'm sorry, we just lost you because of technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah,
I didn't touch the computer, I promise.
Well, that goes along with modernizing your business and your efforts. You have to. There's every once in a while there's a glitch. Like I imagine there have been years that you've been out delivering toys to the children. All of a sudden, you run into a rainstorm or a snowstorm. You have to just deal with it, right?
You have to be flexible and follow the rules and keep doing what you have to do.
And I think always be positive, no matter what. Right. Always be positive.
Yeah, we're going to get through this one, and we'll get through all of them.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, just had to come up with certain restrictions and everything. Now, I was curious because you have so many places to go this year, so many more children to visit and deliver toys to, and all. Has that affected you health-wise at all? Your stress level, your blood pressure?
Well, I rest a lot during the year and put on.
You're like a bear.
Elves are very well trained and very organized, and each place has, if you would, a foreman or a head elf who and they report in every day. And now with the advent of computers, that has made some things a lot easier,
So
That's very, very important to know. Yeah. And I'm sure Lucia, you keep a watchful eye over him all the time while he's down there working with the elves, making sure that progress is being made, getting everything ready. You've only got 2 days to go.
Well, we have really, not to pat ourselves on the back, because we do have, it's 48 hours, so we have to get on that slide. But we have been working very hard and keeping things up to date and checking in with everybody. And yes, I do kind of check on him. I wouldn't use the term nag, but question and make sure things are going forward smoothly.
how many of those peppermint sticks have you had today?
Yes.
Well, he once said that no matter where I am in the house, if he opens the refrigerator door, I hear him.
You check to see how many empty cups of hot chocolate there are in the sink.
Right.
Goodness. We all have our little something, right?
That's right. Now have there been any other kind of adjustments that you've had to make for the COVID pandemic? I mean, did you have to go through any kind of a process with the FAA for traveling because certain countries are restricting flights? And
Pretty much we did our own thing until they came out with the vaccine, because there wasn't a lot of air traffic. So things were pretty smooth along that. Can I add something, Stuart, at this time?
Oh, you absolutely can. You're Santa Claus. You can do whatever you want.
It's your show, so lots of times Santa Claus gets asked to find mommy or daddy a job. And
If that's a hard question, that's come
that's
up.
a hard question that comes up,
this
and
year,
I'm
yeah.
sure if I was out there with the kids, I'd get that question. And what I say to them, and I'll say right now, is Santa may not be able to help get them a job, but what you can do is hug your mommy and dad and tell them that you believe in them and that this will change, and that you love them and you're standing beside them. And that's what I try to tell everybody who's got a mommy or daddy that's not working.
Because Santa always wants to never make a promise that he can't keep. And we've had a lot of requests for puppies this year. And we need to make sure, and the letters have gone back and forth. We want to make sure that the parents really think this is a great idea, because it's very important for the child to know there's some responsibility. And it's also very important for the dog to be welcomed and taken care of. But we've had a lot of good back and forth. So I think that there will be a lot of little puppies and some kittens finding new homes this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask was have you seen an increase in the number of requests for live animals as gifts? And you mentioned the word responsibility, and that's an extremely important part of that.
That's one of the things we ask the elves. If they find out by watching that there's a live animal involved, we try to make sure that just a little bit closer look is what we.
And I think it's good too. And a lot of times, a couple of people that we've actually had conversations with, we told them that it might be a good idea to say that Santa, we're going to get a puppy, but let's go after Christmas. There's during the vacation, but this kind of, they're home now already. And let's pick out the puppy together. Or go to the shelter and find a dog that needs a home. And then there'll be an immediate bonding or something. And then we're helping to clear out the shelters, and we're giving the child something they really want. And Santa can only fit so many things in his sleigh at one time. So.
And you're absolutely right. A load of cats. It's chaos.
Not only that, but it could be a potential mess in the sled.
That's right. That's right.
But we did stock up on Lysol and wipes and all of those things.
Yeah, and you are absolutely right. And I thank you for those words to the children and the parents that are listening and watching the show too. Is because I know that the reports always come out after Christmas. The shelters are already filled with animals that are looking for homes to adopt them. And then new puppies and kittens come into the world. People think they can take care of them. They don't. And those animals then end up in already crowded shelters. So I think your words of, maybe consider as a Christmas gift, go to a shelter after Christmas and find that one in a million animal that's looking for a good home, and you've got one to provide.
Yes.
And then you see I've seen the look in the child's eye and also in the puppy's eye or the dog's eye when they meet each other sometimes they might walk in and they zero in on one particular dog, and then that's it. That's the one. They've got almost an immediate bond.
Yeah. I zeroed in on a bicycle once. And I saw
many years ago, I wanted a walking doll.
Yeah, and I mean the things that the kids want today, it almost boggles the mind. I mean, almost everything is electronic. We're talking about puppies. They even have a little. Have you seen that little mini teacup electronic puppy?
Oh, I saw something. I think it was. I think we saw him on the news. He was from Japan or something, and he walked around. Yes. It's
It's
like a robot almost.
Yeah, it pants, it rolls over, it does everything, and you're sitting here looking at this thing, and you're saying, "Oh, that's got to be a real puppy." So I imagine you're going to start getting lots of requests in the next few days for that one because the elves
electronics. You're right, are very high on the list, and sometimes I wonder if families have enough bandwidth for all the electronics they're in that one house, but. They seem to make it work. So who am I to say?
So we talk about the kids and everything, but are some of the mommies and daddies looking for certain things? I mean, other than what you mentioned, Santa, that a lot of them, realize that they may have to tighten the belt. Excuse the expression. Tighten the belt a little bit this year because there may not be as much exposable income for Christmas. So are there certain things that you are looking into to try and provide that happiness at reasonable cost for the kids and the parents?
Well, one thing that I'll always give my kudos to are those Marines and their
Toys for
Tots.
Yeah.
That's a worthwhile when you add more money. There's a lot more once they get going. So and people should give in the good times the Toys for Tots, and then be able to take.
And I do. I also read that the program and people are very generous. At this time of the year, I've seen a lot of things where people have been doing a lot of donations for food drives, and a lot of donations for toy drives. And there are several families in different areas in parts of the world that we've gotten letters and information, but you could tell I'm Italian. I use my hand. Sorry, that they have adopted local families, or many churches are doing the angel tree again, where you take an ornament and you get something specific for a person in need. And I know there are so many places that are trying to do that.
And Stuart, aren't you in the Dallas area?
Yes.
There was a group here called the Margarita organization.
The Margarita Society, yes.
Margarita Society. And I have never seen the amount of bicycles and toys and Barbie dolls and you name it in my life is going to the society when they have their big ball. Of course, they're not having their big ball this year, but they are going around asking for donations.
Yeah, they had several impromptu get-togethers or toy drives where they would collect things as social distancing.
So,
and to some of the parents have written letters, like you said, about things that things have had to be modified a little bit this year. And so many of the parents have expressed the fact that they have had more time to be with your family. Many who are working, who are still working, who are able to work from home, have been with their family, 24/7. And sometimes that could be a little bit of an issue when you're trying to work and you're trying to help your children with school. But the fact that they've had more time, there have been more family dinners where people have eaten breakfast and dinner together as a family this year than, and so the pandemic, as terrible as it is, and we feel for all those families who lost someone to this terrible, terrible illness. But it has, one good thing is that it's brought many families closer together.
You're right, and because of that, some of those older values that we maybe have put on the shelf for a while in our busy society have come back again. I remember growing up where dinner time, usually always started. So how was school today? And we would talk about it. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have that conversation because most of the kids say to you, "What do you mean? How was school today? I was sitting right here with you."
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, one part of that you got to think through too, Stuart, you got a bunch of teachers that are trying real hard to try to make it through this. And this is new for them too. So a lot of the teachers are out there giving it their all to a blank screen. And, it takes a lot.
That's right. You mentioned the Toys for Tots program that the U.S. Marine Corps runs every year, and a lot of the fire departments we're running against time right now. If you do have toys and all, you might make some phone calls to find out if any of the fire departments or police departments are still accepting any toys for distribution, or any of the Marine places. Too. That's important. And another thing that I think is very important that we should share, and I got this from some of your elves, the Salvation Army for decades and decades has been on the corners in front of department stores and at the malls with their red kettles, asking people just to donate $1 or some change. And because we are sequestered in our homes and we're not going out as much as we used to, donations for the Salvation Army are being challenged this year. And so they've developed an online program. So if you are not able to get out and drop those coins and dollar bills into the red kettles for the Salvation Army, who do phenomenal work too, and assist Santa and Mrs. Claus and the great things that they do every year, go online and consider making a donation. Stop and think, okay, maybe I'll give up one pizza, and instead of the cost of a pizza, I'll donate that to the Salvation Army or to another nonprofit and all that could really use some additional help this year.
Or having that pizza delivered, and by one of the things, if you went and picked it up yourself and gave the money that you give to have it delivered to the Salvation Army, that would be a little thing that you'd never see.
And so many of the cities and towns and villages that we all live in throughout the United States and the world have special places, a church or a food pantry or a family services. If you feel the desire to help in some way and you want to make sure it stays local, just give them a call or look them up on the internet and send them a note. I'm sure they would be happy. But yes, I do remember hearing just recently that the Salvation Army was said that there are a lot of, and so many other places too, their donations are down because people are just in a situation that it's unheard of how this has happened and how we have to deal with it. But yeah, at this time of the year, it's always nice to think of your fellow man and keep that Christmas spirit going, no matter how much or how little you have. If you could just do a little something, just like you said, just a little change, anything that you could do, I think it's certainly worthwhile. And it would make Santa feel so good.
I'll be ho-ho-hoing a whole lot more.
You feel a whole lot better. Well, do a little math here, folks. If you normally go out and buy 2 boxes of cookies for Santa, He's got lots of places to stop. He's got lots of places to pick up cookies. Maybe this year, buy one box of cookies to have for Santa, to leave for Santa, and the other, the money you would have spent on that box of cookies, make a donation. If every household was to donate the cost of one box of cookies, we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars could be raised.
Yeah, that's very true.
Very
That's
true. Very true.
And
Yeah.
everybody loves cookies.
So we talked earlier about the fact that because more children have been home, more children have been good this year, probably than any other year that we can recall. That has meant that you've had to increase your staff, and gotten more elves to be there on the front lines, getting everything together. What's a process that you go through in getting elves to help not only at the North Pole where you are, but also at your distribution centers all over the world?
Well, we think locally. And so once again, we've got supervisors in the field that take care of all the personnel problems that you might have. And you have those just because they're elves, okay?
and that's what they want to do. It's in their heart to want to do something for other people, especially for children. It's just part of their DNA, I would guess.
And so I think the child part of it is what keeps us all together and keeps the inter-office tension down and gets us all working together. And if it's for the children, you think hard about it. Does this make it better for the children? And if the answer is yes, then go ahead and do it.
And I would assume that finding elves that are bilingual is very, very helpful too.
Well, they have to speak the local language for sure.
Yeah, well, and we, we live in a very diverse community. Our world has become more and more diverse, and we have to include everybody. It's so important. And there are people that do not celebrate Christmas, but they celebrate other holidays around this time. And it's always good to respect their beliefs and their religion. And and if you don't celebrate Christmas, but just say, have a happy New Year, or we wish you the best.
Yeah, happy holidays works for everybody.
Holidays. Yes.
And I was just reading the other day that I think that at this time of the year, among all of the religions of the world, there's something like 27 holidays that all fall between the middle of December and the middle of January.
Yeah, well,
so happy holidays really works then, doesn't it?
It was just Diwali, the Festival of Lights, and then Hanukkah.
Right.
And then
That's right. Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa's it starts the day after Christmas. And then of course there's New Year's. The people of the Jewish faith have celebrated their Jewish New Year already. That was Rosh Hashanah, I believe.
Yeah.
And then and in January, I think it's Chinese New Year. So that everybody has something, like you said. I didn't know there were quite so many. I'm gonna have to look up some of those, Stuart. Thank you.
I mean, some are kind of remote, but there are some religious holidays in every continent that in South America and in Africa and in the Indonesia and all that are a little more obscure, but they're celebrated at that same time of the year.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't want to pour any more on your sled than you need because you're busy enough with Christmas. But it's just amazing to me what you have to go through and what you have to accomplish, really in a 24-hour period.
Fortunately, rest up a lot during the year.
Well, yeah, fortunately, if you start at one time zone, and you go west, then you finish up in that one time zone and go back to the next time zone. It's the same time zone, so you're always working, with the clock.
Well.
Not exactly Groundhog Day, but I hear what you're saying.
Right.
but you got to remember, say where you are, Stuart, it's tomorrow in India.
That's right. That's right. So if you start in India, then by the time you get back here to Texas, it'll be about the same time as it was in India.
Right. Which, if you think about it, I'd never get off the ground because I wouldn't know which direction to go.
Well, that's why you've got some good reindeer.
Yeah.
Another question I have for you, Santa, have you noticed that there is an increase in the number of children that are saying, I've always asked for trains and dolls and bicycles and all kinds of hard goods, but that a lot more of them are saying, a gift card would be nice this year, and then I can do whatever I want with it.
Yes.
Especially the teenagers.
Yeah, the teenagers are big on the gift cards, and they realize that if they get just a general gift card and a general gift card from this set of parents and grandparents and so on and so forth, then they have a stack of real good stuff, and they can use it anywhere they want to.
And it makes your job a lot easier because when you come down the chimney, you go right to those stockings hanging over the hearth, and you just drop those gift cards in those stockings.
That's right. That's right.
Make it easy. Drop those gift cards, grab a couple of cookies, and you're out of there.
That's right. That's right.
And I think it's a continuing in motion. Things change each year, and sometimes you go back a little to more traditional ways, or sometimes you go forward and then there's something different going on. Or like you say, and I do remember one little boy who came to see us last year. Actually, we were in Frisco, and while we were waiting for the sleigh to be repaired, and we were at the Heritage Museum at the depot with the Heritage Association of Frisco, and he was talking to us, and they were twin boys. And they both wanted to see Santa do the floss, and he did. And then one of them was asking for a game that he wanted for his computer. And then he was asking for a doll for his little baby sister who wasn't there. And the other one told Santa that cash was king. And I just sat there for a minute holding the candy cane in my hand.
It always works.
Yes.
And a smart kid, if he gets the cash and he puts it in a bank account, his cash will earn more cash.
That's true. That's right.
You don't have to run down to the candy store and spend it all at one time in one place.
That's right. Don't spend it all in one place.
And some of the children write such beautiful little letters that it's really nice to hear some of the things they say. And a lot of them are asking for things for other siblings or their parents. And one was saying that she was so sad because she couldn't see her grandma for Thanksgiving and now for Christmas. And they've made arrangements to do a, what did they call that thing you do? Zoom. They were going to do that when they were having their Christmas dinner. They were going to have the computer at the table, and the grandmother was going to have her computer at the table so they could enjoy Christmas dinner together.
I've heard that there's going to be a lot of families that are going to meet via Zoom or any one of those other platforms, and they're all going to do it at the same time and then take turns opening their presents and making it as virtual as possible, that everybody can be at the same place at the same time.
But I think it's going to be fun too. We've done a few little things with some people. Just some of the elves have Zoomed with us. I couldn't remember what it was called, and they're telling us things that have been going on in their areas. But they love it because they get to see what's going on even when they're not here.
Santa, is your sled outfitted with Zoom so that you can get input from your elves around the world?
Well, I usually have to be a little bit more mobile than that, but I've become more reliant on the handheld devices now, and that crosses borders easier than a whole computer. And I'm limited in my space that I have.
He's got to has to have room for all those presents.
But you got a good navigation system, I'm sure.
Just follow that red nose in front of you.
That's right. And the eight reindeer behind too.
That's right. That's right. nose so bright, it'll work every time.
That's right. And I understand that Rudolph is even enhancing by putting some LED lights in his antlers to assist.
I've seen some of that at some of the light shows that are going on, and that's something different this year too. We're seeing more and more communities putting together light shows.
Yeah, the drive-through light shows. They've been very popular.
Those are very popular, and
so you have some of the joy of Christmas and all the fun and the lights, but you're still socially distanced. So that was,
stay in your.
That brings up another question in my mind, and that is because people have really been decorating their homes with lots of lights and the blow up characters. I've seen 20-foot high snowmen and Santas. What does that look like from up in the heavens when you're traveling around the world?
Boy, there are some houses that you think you're coming in on the airport as opposed to coming into the rooftop. So, that's fun. When you see a bright house like that, the family had a lot of fun putting it up, and a lot of work went into it, but they had a lot of fun and a lot of togetherness in order to do that and pull that off. So,
yeah, and that must help your navigational system in order to try and find, going from city to city, you go from bright light to bright lights.
Well, you don't have to go city to city. Sometimes in areas like Frisco, you go to house. And
right.
Especially, the good little boy lives in the kind of nicely done house, and then the bad boy lives in the real bright house, like he's trying to deflect you over to his house.
But yeah, we actually have seen some of the light shows. Just you kind of tried to travel around a little bit inconspicuously to see what was going on, to see how people were reacting and how things were going. So I think that was a fun thing to see a lot.
Well, of course, a lot of that is falls on the shoulders of the elves and the elves on the shelves, and all to make sure that they know, okay, we're the house with the 3 lighted reindeer in the front yard.
Right.
It's good here.
One of the things that we were chuckling about, and the elves thought this was so funny, is the people that have the little stuffed elf on the shelf in their homes. Many of them, when the elves first came out, they quarantined them. So the elves here were laughing. They were watching this on the computer and saying, "Oh, look, Tweety is in a glass jar with a mask on, and he's over here behind us." They thought that was the funniest thing because they knew these elves when they weren't stuffed, and when they're running around. So I think, but the elf on the shelf has been quite popular this year.
Well, I know there's the elf on the shelf, and then for Hanukkah, there's a mensch on a bench.
Yes, I read about that actually.
And this year, just to help people to make sure that they knew about the medical aspects of the pandemic, have you seen that there is a Fauci on the couchy?
Oh no, I'll have to look at that. I didn't see that. I did see a Fauci bobblehead doll. That was on somebody's list, actually.
There's a Fauci on the couchy that makes sure that your home is well prepared for Santa's visit.
Okay,
well, that's good to know.
Sounds good.
And I think that's very, very nice. Well, Kris and Lucia, if I may be so bold.
Sure.
Well, we're calling you Stuart, so
it's been wonderful spending this time and for you to take that amount of time out of your busy schedule. And I thank you on behalf of all of the folks across the country that are watching this show, and especially to all the children. Make sure that you're well prepared for your visit from Santa. And Santa and Lucia, thank you very, very much for spending some time here on Someone You Should Know.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you and Lauren have wonderful holidays as well. And
well, thank you very, very much.
To all and to all the good night, Santa. You want to say a few words there?
Well, have a ho holiday.
Oh. Well, thank you very, very much. That'll do it for another edition of Someone You Should Know. And as I always like to end my show, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
That's right.
Happy
Merry
holidays.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Ho, 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 ho.
Bye.